Today I want to go for an advanced auto layout concept that majority of designers don't know about. In my previous video where I talked about auto layout, I mentioned that in auto layout you must have the spacing between items exactly the same for all of the items within an auto layout frame. We can actually introduce a component called vertical space, which we can insert into the auto layout frame in order for us to dynamically control the spacing between items. So let's jump into Figma and I'm going to show you how to do it. So at the end of our video, this is where we got to a login modal where you adjust the size and it would dynamically adjust its width. If I wanted to increase the spacing between items, the spacing has to be identical for all of them. So what we can do now is create the vertical space component. So we start off by pressing A or going to the top left here by pressing on the frame button. Alternatively, you can press F. So F and A, they actually do the same thing. And then we are just going to drag out a frame. Now, we have to apply auto layout to this frame in order for us to define a minimum and a maximum height. Let's just do that. Press auto layout, and then what you'll notice is the height is now turned into a drop down. I'm just going to go with 20 pixel, 40 pixel, 80 pixel for the purpose of this video. So obviously for you and your design team, you can have all the different spacing that will match your design tokens. And here we're just going to set it to 40. And then the max height, 40 again. So now basically this frame cannot be adjusted in size. So it doesn't matter if I try to drag up or down, it will always be 40 pixel. Then I'm going to just copy this. Then I'm just going to copy this frame and adjust the minimum height to 80. And what you'll find is the maximum height just gets adjusted automatically. And then I'm just going to create one more and it's going to be 20. So for 20, we have to do the maximum height. So that will then adjust the minimum height to 20 because obviously the minimum can't be more than the maximum. Then I'm going to remove the fill, add a layout grid and change it to column and set the count to 1. Now here you can adjust the color of the layout grid to whatever you want it to be. I'm going to change it to green, let's say. Then just to make things easier before we turn them into components, I'm going to name them as well. So this is 20, this is 40, and this is 80. Okay, so now we can merge them into one component set. So select all of them, go to your component button at the top, click on the drop down, and then click on create component set. And then I'm going to rename this to vertical space. So now I've got the vertical space created. Let's drop them into the auto layout frame. So if I drag that into here, drag that one into there, and then the 80 at the bottom, select all of them, make sure we've got fill container set. You don't necessarily need to have fill container set for these vertical space, but just for visual purposes, it just makes it a lot easier for you to see when it's fill container. And now we go back to the auto layout frame, change the spacing to 0, and we can use the vertical space component to adjust the spacing between items. This just makes it a lot easier for you to dynamically control the spacing. Previously, I did mention you can embed auto layout within auto layout, but if you imagine a massive project with say 10 different designers working on a website, and you've got hundreds of pages, and each of those pages have got loads of auto layout within auto layout within auto layout, the layers just get super messy. So by having a vertical space component, not only will you reduce the number of auto layout frames embedded within another auto layout frame, but it also helps keep consistency for all the designers. So for example, if your vertical space only has 4, 8, 12, 16 increments of 4 all the way up to 80, you know that everyone else can only have spacing within 4 increments. Whereas if it's an auto layout frame within an auto layout frame, they might make a typo. So for example, if I wanted to recreate this and I make these two an auto layout frame, then I make these two an auto layout frame, and this can just sit in the middle. And then the password is another auto layout frame between the login and username. And then now if I adjust these to match, so if I say 20, and then this as 40, then this as 80. So visually, although it does look the same, from a layers perspective, like you've got loads of different layers, and It just makes it really difficult for you to know which one is which when you're flicking through them. And especially when you're handing design off from one designer to another, and then down to a developer as well. So different people are going to have different ways of embedding autolayout frames within autolayout frames. So it just makes it really complicated from a handoff perspective. In addition to that, if your design system has already got design tokens in place, these vertical space can actually be design tokens as well for developers. Again, that would just help from a scalability and consistency perspective to ensure your designs are perfect from the get-go. Okay, that's it for this video. And if you want to learn the fundamentals of auto layout again, then you can click on this video here.